This past year contained many monumental and worthy items of news. And yet, as I look back on the year of 5779, for me, there is one earth-shattering event that changed my world above all else. I got a dog. Blair and I surprised the kids in November with a mini golden doodle whose name is Wrigley, of course named after the friendly confines, the home of the Chicago Cubs. She's already graced the cover of our winter newsletter, Kol HaShalom. And the reason why I had to assume that you'd enjoy hearing about her from the Bima this morning was the overwhelming reaction to the article that I wrote. Week after week, I stand here and teach Torah. I write messages about Yiddishkeit in our weekly email blasts. I innovate adult education classes and teach the texts of our tradition. I deliver sermons about the Parsha. I invite guest authors and rabbis to teach. And nothing has elicited the kind of enthusiasm as the short article I wrote about a puppy. I received a deluge of Mazel Tov emails. We received Hanukkah gifts from congregants for my dog. Many of you have met her, and she is an avid supporter of our softball team. That puppy made me realize a simple notion about life. We feel better when we're surrounded with love. It might seem obvious, but too many of us spend our days striving for success, for achievement, for satisfaction, and we don't think about love. Love is powerful, and love is contagious. Some of you might be thinking, why is the rabbi using this opportunity to teach about something we already know? If we all understand the wonder of love, why must the Torah command us, Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha? You should love your neighbor as yourself. The Torah doesn't command us to love one another when we get a puppy, or to love our family when we're celebrating a simcha. It doesn't need to. We don't need such a commandment in the Torah. We're commanded to love our neighbor as ourselves because of the other side of the coin of life. Because we need love when we're alone, when we're in the hospital, when there's tragedy. We especially need to be commanded to give love when we don't yet know the neighbors in our community. In response, our sages created a category of mitzvah called chesed, which are acts of loving kindness, or acts of compassion. These are the acts upon which I'd like for our community to focus this morning and the entire year. And so while many sermons today will be dark and depressing, political and scary, about infighting and about disassociation from synagogue life, I'd like to recognize everything that's good and possible here, where we are in the midst of building something beautiful. And as we do, we must take a moment and examine the challenge that we face. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the famous 18th century Hasidic master, who was the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, he famously warned, Kol ha'ulam kulo, gesher tsar me'od. For each of us, the world is but a long, narrow bridge. On one hand, we have the Torah's command to love our neighbor and on the other, Rabbi Nachman's observation that we each feel like we are walking a lonely road. If each of our lives is but a long, rickety, narrow bridge, delicate and fragile, how do we strengthen each of our bridges? We pull another bridge up alongside and we fasten them together. Our paths are stronger and more stable together. Today on Yom Hadin, our day of judgment, we acknowledge Rabbi Nachman's understanding of life and answer by accepting the command of the Torah to simply love, to support, and to have compassion for one another. It's for this reason I'd like to announce our new initiative here at Adat Shalom for the coming year, and that is building a community of compassion. This was the subject of our latest board retreat in July. It is a vision and a passion I share with the president of the board, Janet Schulman. She has made it an absolute priority for her term, and I can't thank Janet enough. And I can't thank our board of directors enough for devoting themselves to this incredible ideal of love and compassion. And I'm excited to share that this initiative of our Chesed Committee will be chaired by Marla Nolan and Natalie Stenger. The entire plan will not be realized overnight, but I'd like to highlight some of the aspects of the program that we can expect in the coming year. 2 years ago, we launched Shabbat Across Adat. On 2 Shabbatot during the year, we asked for members to volunteer to host and members to call the office who would like to be hosted. On average, we have almost 100 people participate in Shabbat dinners in our community those evenings during the year. In addition to those 2 Shabbatot, we hold a monthly community Shabbat dinner here at the synagogue, and we join together for an inspiring Shabbaton in January. According to my count, that's community Shabbat plans for 15 out of 52 Friday nights each year. And one of the new initiatives of compassion is to start keeping a database to increase that number. And I'd like to thank Liz Bar-El for offering to volunteer to help with the database. And we need others to volunteer as well. We'll try to add a handful of more opportunities for Shabbat dinner this year. So when a member of our community wants to attend Shabbat dinner, we'll find for that person a place at the table. And my ultimate goal for this community in the years to come is that eventually we are a synagogue that offers a place at a Shabbat table to any member looking for one, any Shabbat of the year. And God willing, our compassion will extend past Shabbat to holiday meals as well, and to giving rides to those of us in our community who need help getting to and from synagogue and our programs. Wherever you live, at whatever age, young or less young, we have to commit ourselves to helping members stay connected with the synagogue. Another bridge to which each of us must fasten our own bridge for strength is the state of Israel. In that effort, we have created an Israel Social Action Initiative chaired by Alan Cohen with a terrific committee that met and discussed different social action organizations in Israel that we could stand behind. We have selected the organization Leket as our synagogue partner. Leket's mission is to lead the safe, effective, and efficient collection and distribution of food in Israel to those who need it, irrespective of religion and race. Simply put, we as a community will commit ourselves to feeding the hungry in the state of Israel. We're devoting ourselves to fundraising for it during the year. We hope to welcome speakers from them. We hope to provide volunteer opportunities for our members when they visit Israel. All of this culminating, God willing, in a community trip to Israel a year and a half from now, a year from this spring. You will hear more about our partnership with Leket in the days and weeks ahead. At the same time, increasing the love on an institutional basis is not enough. We have to each commit to this as individuals. All of this must begin with a sense of personal buy-in. Each of us has to open our hearts a little more to give more love to one another, and each of us has to open ourselves to be more vulnerable to receive more love from one another. I know that there are those of us sitting here in the sanctuary right now who need help, the kind of help that neighbors sitting here in the sanctuary right now can provide. On this Yom Hadin, this day of judgment, for each of us lies this very practical challenge. How many of us can include 2 more people at our Shabbat table even once or twice during the year? I leave services on Shabbat mornings, and I find Cantor Dale Schatz outside walking people to their cars to make sure that we don't fall down. How many of us can learn from his generosity and ask one another when we leave the social hall if anybody would like company walking to their cars? Can we offer families with strollers help loading their children into the van? Can we find a child here in the sanctuary, whether quietly listening or talking loudly, and can we welcome that child for coming to services? Can we offer to visit members of our community who feel isolated, or simply meet them for an occasional lunch or coffee? Can we go to the hospital and visit our friends in this room when we fall ill? Can we help provide a meal for others when they get home from the hospital? In this day and age in which we live, we are unfortunately forced to recognize the vulnerability and the fragility of life, especially the vulnerability and the fragility of the Jewish community here in America. Think about the attacks on 9/11, about the anti-Semitic attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, and about the anti-Semitic attack on the Chabad of Poway. Each of these tragedies rocked the world and affected the Jewish world, and each contained acts of chesed that provided hope for all of us as well. Consider the 9/11 story of Abraham Zalmanovitz, a computer programmer on the 21st floor of the towers who chose to remain with his quadriplegic coworker, Ed Baye, rather than only save himself that September morning. From Tree of Life, we remember the brothers Cecil and David Rosenthal, who both lived with Fragile X syndrome, who loved their community, and who welcomed others and who were welcomed, who always carried the Torah around the sanctuary on Shabbat morning. We honor Almog Peretz, who moved to San Diego from Sderot to avoid attacks and found himself under fire, and he was shot in the leg as he protected all of the children in the synagogue and ushered them all out of the synagogue to safety. I could choose other examples as well. But during times of extraordinary tragedy and darkness, it's these acts of chesed that give us hope. It's these stories that are forwarded from inbox to inbox to inbox. I pray none of us ever face situations like any of these, but we don't have to wait for extreme, daunting darkness. We have the opportunity to express love and support for one another in the ordinary, challenging moments of our lives, beginning right now. And I know we can do it. I know our community is capable of such chesed, immense loving kindness. Just over a month ago, I underwent emergency surgery, and I received dozens upon dozens of texts and calls and emails from this congregation expressing well wishes and refuah shlema. And if we can do it for my sake, we can do it for any of our sakes. For here at Adat Shalom, we are growing a multi-generational Jewish community. Today, more than 1/3 of our community has joined within the last 4 years. During that time, we have welcomed families with young children. We've almost doubled the size of our religious school, welcoming children of all abilities. We've also welcomed more senior members as well. The excuse I hear most often is that each of us doesn't know everybody in our community. What an incredible problem that we have. We're growing too quickly. And it's for this reason that we've created these pledge cards, these yellow pledge cards, to help us build a community of compassion. The success of this initiative largely lies with who is willing to bend down a tab right now and volunteer for the coming year. Bending a tab does not mean that you'll receive a full-time job. It is an offer that you are willing to be contacted when a need arises for somebody else in our community. Being a member here at Adat Shalom means that we are pledging to love and support one another, irrespective of whether we in fact know one another. Next week, we will ask you to pledge with your resources. This week, I am asking you to pledge with your neshama. Folding down a tab on this card means that we believe in a core value of caring for our fellow Jew. And I would suggest that compassion from a stranger is sometimes the most powerful act of kindness, the most powerful chesed possible. It was 2013, and Blair and I were moving the kids to Israel for my year of study. As exciting and happy as I was to move to Israel for the year, as much as it was a blessing and a fulfillment of all of my Zionist dreams, it was daunting to uproot our family for the year and settle in Jerusalem. So my entire family planned a trip to Disneyland in August, a week before we left. For those of us who know us well, you know how important Disney is to our family. At the time, Shelby was 4 and Simon was 2, and amidst all of the planning and the packing, they never discussed fears or anxiety with us at all. So we all go to Disneyland, and nobody speaks about how we're leaving for the year in just a matter of days. A cloud hung that day over the happiest place on earth. And then we visited the Princess Pavilion, Shelby's favorite part. And we moved through the princesses, and as luck would have it, we encountered Shelby's favorite princess, Princess Aurora. Shelby's face lit up. Sleeping Beauty was not only her favorite Disney film, it was not only on her pillow and blanket, but Aurora had actually attended each of her birthday parties, whether or not that Aurora knew it or not. And as the program dictates, the Disney photographer asked if Shelby wanted to approach and take a picture with Aurora. And as usual, they hugged and they took pictures. And then before being ushered away, 4-year-old Shelby turned to Princess Aurora and said, "Aurora, I won't be seeing you for a very long time. I'm moving far away to Israel." Shelby, who kept up a strong facade, stronger than Blair and me, through the entire transition, at that moment with a stranger, this Disney princess, she looked like she was on the verge of tears. Princess Aurora could have answered any which way. And in that moment, our future plans as a family hung in the balance. Princess Aurora knelt down to Shelby's eye level and covered her mouth. "Israel," she gasped in excitement. "Israel is one of my favorite places in the world to visit. You're so lucky. You'll have so much fun living in Israel." and she hugged my daughter. And I'm telling you that there could be no more powerful a hug than the one that this complete stranger gave my daughter that morning. She could have offered any number of ideas: social, political, cultural, religious. But she offered support to a vulnerable child. The princess offered compassion to a stranger in need in a way that those who knew her and loved her simply could not. And I will never know how to thank that Princess Aurora. On this Yom Hadin, many of us reflect on our year and only consider our year, our own singular, fragile path. We shouldn't. We must focus on opportunities to strengthen our path by connecting with others. Could there be a better way to get to know somebody than by offering them help? So please, take a moment and look at the pledge cards and turn down a tab or two. In a moment, ushers will walk around and collect your pledge cards. Please help make our vision of a community of compassion possible. Think about the welcoming smile each of us can offer at a Shabbat or a holiday dinner, or a meal each of us can provide after a stay in the hospital, or the good we can serve by feeding our brothers and sisters in Israel. Pirkei Avot teaches us that mitzvah gorer et mitzvah. A mitzvah causes us to do another mitzvah. If we begin to care, truly care about one another, I promise you that kindness will radiate outside of our community. For to change the world, we must first begin by changing ourselves. Not by teaching others what to do, but rather by doing it. We need to lead by example. We here at Adat Shalom, we are bucking the trends of the American Jewish community in so many ways. Let's have our membership here actually mean something greater than just high holiday seats. To be a member of Adat Shalom means that each of us is prepared to help one another across the bridges of our lives, by putting our arms around one another, by caring about one another, by loving one another, even by loving one another's dogs. I believe we're up to this challenge. Shana Tova U'Mituka. May we all be blessed with a year of goodness, a year of health, a year of happiness, with a year of love.